Now, this was the week that we got to watch Weird, the Al Yankovic story. I had high hopes for this. I'm somebody who has been a lifelong Weird Al Yankovic fan. At one point in my life, I knew all the words to the 11.5-minute song Albuquerque. The song Hardware Store changed my life, and the man taught me how to harmonize. I love Weird Al. I think he's one of the best celebrities out there, the way he handles celebrity. I've seen him live. He's a fantastic live performer. He never phones it in. I had incredibly high hopes for this movie, and I say this with all the love in my heart for a man who really inspired me. This was not a good movie.
Ah, I always love your like epic buildups. They always give me joy.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I mean, Roland, you watched it too. Were you
I
thrilled?
did. There's at some points I was thrilled. But a lot of this is juxtaposition, dare I say. It's very like ridiculous on purpose. Weird Al is like a renowned like almost vegan guy who doesn't drink or do any drugs or stuff like that. And basically the story is him following this like very stereotypical rock star life, which Andrew and I predicted to be a very we thought it was going to be the next Dewey Cox kind of story.
Yeah, and again, Walk Hard it might be my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
And so this was a tall order for somebody to do a parody biopic, but if there was anybody to do it, it was him. I think what really bugged me about this was that this was based on the Funny or Die sketch, which you pointed out to me.
Yeah.
And I watched that, and the sketch is good. It stars Aaron Paul and not Daniel Radcliffe. But
Yeah.
it's funny because it's a trailer and you can see where everything's going to go. This movie really felt like they just stretched out
The
the
joke.
the joke. They just stretched out I mean, even in the look. And this was a movie where it looked like most of the budget went to getting Daniel Radcliffe. I mean, it was distracting how bad the production was in a lot of this.
You
And
think?
yeah, for me, and I'm not generally a snob about that kind of stuff. Other stuff I'm a snob about, but not that.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, for all of the talent involved in this, they had a fantastic cast, a lot of
The
really funny people.
cameos? Oh my
Cameos were great.
gosh. The pool party alone.
Yeah, that scene was like, that's hilarious, just who they got there. And it was, I imagine the days filming this were so much fun. I just wish
Fun
that
fact,
had
real
been
quick.
communicated through the actual movie.
Yeah.
Fun fact?
They filmed this in 18 days.
That sounds about right. It
Yeah.
feels like it. It
Yeah.
feels like it. I, the other thing about it is that if you know anything about Weird Al Yankovic's life, he's got a really interesting story, and it's riddled with tragedy and like really inspiring moments. And honestly, what this made me feel was I'd like to actually see the Weird Al Yankovic story. I know
Mhm.
that's not what this was, but there's more to him. And, at the end of it, he really does and did inspire people to embrace their weirdness and to just
Yeah.
be, your kooky self. They tried to just sort of gloss that into his award acceptance speech, and it didn't it wasn't delivered. It didn't deliver properly.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I'll say this movie didn't wow me. It made me chuckle a couple of times, but where it's brilliant is in how Roku used it strategically, because nobody even knew that the RokuChannel.com was going to exist before this movie. They built this movie up with so much hype, and Daniel Radcliffe and Weird Al, they did all kinds of magazine interviews and photo shoots, and like the press for this has been pretty good. This was not about Weird Al Yankovic though, or Daniel Radcliffe. It was really more about the Roku channel. And you
Mhm.
even said you were thrilled with your experience, right?
Oh, I yeah, I so when I watched this, I didn't have to log in or anything. I was actually looking up clips on YouTube, and it was just like, watch here now, Roku. And I was like, well, I do need to watch this. Let me just click on this link. And
Yeah.
then the movie started playing.
Yep.
And I was like, convenience. Okay.
It's sort of signaling to the world like Roku's gonna take on all these streamers. You're not gonna have to log in. You're not gonna have to pay. You're not gonna have to sign in with your cable provider. There are ads, so you're watching with ads. But you know what? Television has always had ads. And at the end of the day, this movie did feel like a TV movie. You know,
Yeah.
it just felt like something you would watch on basic cable with ads going through. With Netflix introducing an ad tier and Hulu having an ad tier already, everybody's sort of saying like, hey, the streaming model doesn't totally work, but everybody does have a computer, everybody has a phone, and they can watch this stuff whenever they want. What if we embrace the old model? This could
Yeah.
be really interesting. And the way that Roku is positioning themselves, they're saying we're not going to try and, beat Netflix at its own game. Its own game is failing.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a new age of television that's starting. We're seeing the end of just pure streaming, which is getting expensive. And now Roku is going to start making its own content.
Hmm.
What do you think about that? Is this the bar that they've set? It's a pretty low bar, I gotta say.
Before we go more into the business side, because I know Dan, that's like his go-to. I just want to say that the story was supposed to be a parody, of course,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of fun moments, but the big thing was just like this was a joke that just went on for too long. They could have parodied more. Um, but it is a good watch, and like we said, like you can watch it on Roku if you want. There's other stuff. But Dan, I see you're pulling up articles, and what do you have to say about this? Do you think this is a good idea? Was this smart, or was this just dumb?
Um, I think I mentioned this in our group chat that we have for the team, and my thing is okay. So they brought, I think his name is Charlie Collier. Yeah, Charlie Collier, who used to be, an exec with Fox, and so he came over and he's basically taking charge of their marketing business, and their media business at Roku. But yeah, like you guys mentioned, 18 days, that's an indie film shooting schedule. Like
Yeah.
a proper
Yeah.
Hollywood movie takes usually like a feature like 2 to 3 months to film, even if it doesn't have a lot of visual effects and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
right then I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. Is this feels like, because 18 days is actually still more than most of those Tyler Perry's Medea movies. Yeah, because they do those in like a couple of weeks, frankly.
Yeah.
But still, like it's not like, so that's a red flag. And then I mentioned, in our chat, the idea of, well, how are they going to make money off this? I know they're not putting a ton of money into it, so maybe that's their plan.
Well, it's the
But
advertising.
Ads.
the
like,
advertising,
were there
you know.
by the way, were there ads in this movie when you were watching?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
new model, is that they're saying don't sign in, your eyeballs are all we need. It's basically the YouTube model, but you're signing up for more impressive content,
Okay. So
ideally.
it's like an ad support.
It was like-
yeah, okay.
It was like a long YouTube video because there was like seven, like for me, there was like seven breaks, but it wasn't too
Yeah.
long. It was like 5 or 10 seconds of ads, and then boom, you're back into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, they could develop that into a lot of different things, and they could
It's
even
like Peacock. Peacock has like an ad supported tier. They introduced it with that, and the idea is you sign up for that. If you like it enough, then you pay up to get the one without the ads and some extra content that you don't get. It's kind of like what Netflix is introducing, except they went it the other way around. They started with all the premium, and now they're like, so it kind of, in that sense, I think Peacock did it right because they started off with like a lower tier, and so then when you add on a paid tier on top, people are like, oh, I can upgrade. Whereas with Netflix, it feels like if you want to go to the ad tier now, you're going to be losing stuff, and that's never a good marketing move, I don't think.
this so far feels more like basic cable, which is kind of refreshing because what was really neat about flipping through channels for me as a kid, it's like you could stumble on something interesting, and what I'm just sort of theorizing right now is they could they could have the Roku channel and have a bunch of things that are just always playing, or like you could jump in and watch something and there will be ads and then it'll just lead into the next thing. Or they could end up doing like a bunch of different channels. Because I think one of the bigger problems in streaming right now is you spend 15, 20 minutes deciding what to watch, and you're scrolling and scanning and doing all this stuff. It's nice when something can just kind of pop up and start and capture your imagination. There's some wisdom to the old model of just stumbling upon a new channel. And I watch so many weird documentary shows and like and like true crime stuff or weird reality TV stuff that would just pop up as a kid, and
that is
learn
the
stuff.
format. So that is the format that what is it called? Pluto and Tubi use. They're called so their industry term is FAST, which stands for free ad-supported television. And it seems like, is that what they're trying to do here? Where basically, if you have Tubi or Pluto, and again, they're free. You can get it anywhere. You can go to the website and watch it. They have like a TV guide, and they have this stuff that's just basically these 24/7 streams that are running. A lot of them are just repeats or like catalog content that's just playing on basically a marathon. But then again, like you said, you come home. I used to come home from school and like even from work and but when I was in college, I'd go to work on a day and then have classes in the evening or whatever. You just turn on the TV. And then you just put on, I guess, like Nickelodeon in the afternoon. They're playing like 6 episodes in a row of some show that's not on the air anymore. Or you watch USA Network in the afternoon. They only really program 2 to 3 hours of prime time, not even 5 days a week. Every other time of the day, they're just like playing stuff in syndication. And that's what these networks are now, like this Pluto and
what's interesting about it is
Roku.
like back then you could watch something and then something else would come on and it would be a completely different flavor. And so you wouldn't have to binge one show forever and be done with it. You could still binge television. It would just be a mixed bag and you'd have variety. And your attention would be, would follow a different rhythm, basically. So this would be interesting to see what happens in terms of like television writing, because now you wouldn't necessarily have to make every episode a cliffhanger, and you wouldn't have to write for the binge. It could just be, this is a good show that happens regularly.
I am so ready for episodic television to come back.
Me too. Me too.
It's because there's we talked about it earlier in the show, the idea that there's these shows like Westworld and Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power.
They all
and
feel
even
the
Andor.
same.
They're giving you 8 to 12 episodes or 8 to 13 episodes. Most of the time it's usually 8 or 10, but like Andor has 12. They're gonna take 2 years to give us season 2 of Andor, to give us season 2 of House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power. All of those shows have no more than 10 episodes apiece. I mean, Andor has 12, House of the Dragon has 10, and Rings of Power had 8. But all of those shows, now that we waited years for them to come out with their first season, we're gonna have to wait 2 years to get another set of 8, 10, or 12 episodes. Whereas back in the day, you would get they would crank out 22 episodes a season every year. Like I mean, the actors are constantly employed because like by the time the one season starts airing, you're starting to basically prepare to go into production on the second one, which means the writing room is already at work. The producers are like, they're building sets if they have to build new sets. It's like a constantly churning machine. So from an employment standpoint, it's better. And then from a viewership standpoint, I used to remember, I'm like, a show ran for 5 seasons. It would have 100 episodes, and they would do that so that now it's eligible for syndication. All of a sudden the channel's making back a lot of its money, so they're willing to greenlight 7, 8, 9 seasons, whereas nowadays Netflix, they just cancel stuff after 3 seasons because they're like, well, we got all the subscribers from this that we can get, we're not going to do anymore. Or like networks cancel stuff because if you have 5 seasons of 8 episodes, that's not even 50. So you're nowhere close to syndication. The show cost keeps going up because actor contracts keep going up. You have to renegotiate stuff. The per episode budgets go up because you're getting bigger and better, whatever. But in general, things go up cost wise. So then shows get canceled after 5 years, and you still feel like you didn't get enough of the show. Whereas I discovered The Deadliest Catch, and I'm like, I'm never going to watch The Deadliest Catch. The Deadliest Catch became one of my favorite pastimes because I would just turn on the Discovery Network, or Discovery Channel, in the afternoon, and I could go through 10 episodes because I'm not really watching the show outside of just every so often. It's like background noise sometimes. But it was just on, and you're not having to make an active decision on a piece of content every 10 minutes. I like that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think this could be the new beginning for television, and bringing back a more traditional model would be healthier for everybody who works in television, and I think it could lead to better content in the end. Also, we live our lives by the television right now, and that's something that really changed in the last 10, 15 years. Now, if we go back to just stumbling upon stuff, we don't have to live and die by, a show. We can sort of remove ourselves from content and just watch an episode that happens to be in syndication that pops up. And the advertisers will make their money, and the Roku people will make their money. And we don't have to just glue ourselves to the television. So that's, I don't know. Roland, you want to button this? Is there any final thought you want to give to the future of television?
The future of television is sounding quite nostalgic, if you ask me. But I don't know. This is interesting. Well, I don't want to give my full opinion just because I want to see what Roku does with this, the results from this, and maybe we can come back to this on a later episode.
It's
worth a talk.
I think so. Well, that's been a good talk this far. Thus far. So yeah, that far. Vote on this, that, or thus, and we'll get back to you on that. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Please stay with us. We're going to be talking some more Bollywood Virgin stuff pretty soon. Just like and subscribe, and watch the stuff. Be part of the conversation. We like talking with you people.